This is my initial experience, and your pencil is excessively enormous for me. Greetings, my name is Lily, and I am 18 years old. My existence has consistently been tranquil and unassuming. It has been just my father and me since my mother departed long ago, vanishing one day, as if she had evaporated, leaving behind only voids that my father and I have filled with warmth and affection. We have always been inseparable, akin to two vessels traversing the same tumultuous sea, guiding one another through turbulent waters. A few months ago I commenced my university studies. It represented a considerable transition for someone like me who was accustomed to the stability of our small sheltered environment. It was a profound alteration, lectures, encountering new individuals, and navigating bustling hallways, all of which felt exhilarating yet daunting. My father took pride in my endeavors, though I could perceive his struggle with solitude. Each time I returned home, his radiant smile would illuminate my day. Nevertheless, university life rapidly became all-encompassing. I began attending parties primarily out of curiosity. The atmosphere was unlike anything I had previously encountered: loud music, unfamiliar faces, and a captivating sense of freedom that permeated the air. It represented a novel facet of life that I had never experienced before. After one of my initial parties, I returned home late at night when the city was utterly silent. My father was in the kitchen, seated with a cup of tea, awaiting my return. His expression was gentle, yet I could perceive the underlying concern. "How was the party?" he inquired, attempting to appear nonchalant. "It was enjoyable," I responded, evading details. He nodded, and silence enveloped us. An unusual tension persisted, which I opted to disregard. Each evening I departed the house, that same disquietude resurfaced, as if he dreaded the external world might alter me. That evening commenced like any other, with vibrant music, dancing, and a cocktail in hand. Yet this time I allowed myself to indulge slightly. The warmth of the alcohol instilled in me a sense of audacity and ease, as if the entire world responded to my smile. Upon arriving home late, I found the door unlocked, as was customary. When my father awaited my return, he was seated in the living room at his laptop, the soft illumination of the lamp accentuating his profile. Even at such a late hour, my father appeared composed and self-assured, his broad shoulders and toned physique, along with the tattoos visible beneath his shirt sleeves, attested to his commitment to physical fitness. His thick dark hair was impeccably styled, with a few gray streaks that only enhanced his charm. I entered the room with a skip, and approaching him from behind, gently tapped his shoulders. I exclaimed, stifling a giggle. My dad jumped slightly, then burst into laughter. Laughter leaned forward somewhat, in that way he always did when he was genuinely amused. "What are you up to?" he asked, catching the scent of my perfume and the alcohol on me. "I live life to the fullest," I giggled, feeling a slight dizziness wash over me as he stood up from his chair and turned toward me, gently yet firmly placing his hands on my shoulders. His touch was warm and steady, as if his hands were meant to shield me from everything. His eyes radiated tenderness, but suddenly I became aware of something different, something odd. There was something about the way his scent surrounded me, and the way his smile shattered the last remnants of my drunken calmness, that made me pause. My laughter faded as I tilted my head back to meet his gaze. That look was everything: care, love, warmth, and a hint of reproach. But there was something else too. Startled, I quickly stepped away, attempting to find humor once more to alleviate the situation. "You can consistently maintain a serious demeanor. Consider relaxing a bit," I gestured dismissively before retreating to my room. Yet once behind the closed door, I reclined on my bed for what seemed like hours, an inexplicable sensation lingering within me. His calm yet authoritative voice interrupted my thoughts. "Lily, go take a shower, you need to freshen up," he remarked, tilting his head as he spoke. I nodded slightly, deliberately averting my gaze from his muscular arms crossed over his chest. His concern had always been more than just a duty, but today it seemed to have a distinct essence. I proceeded to the bathroom, leaving the door ajar. As it was customary for us, we had always possessed an implicit trust In one another, I activated the water, allowing the hot stream to envelop me, its warmth merging with the tunnel of emotions in my mind. Under the shower, my thoughts drifted to him, his hands, which had grasped me so firmly moments prior, and a smile which seemed to penetrate the depths of my being. Each droplet of water that contacted my skin felt imbued with his essence, as if his touch lingered with me. I stepped into the cascade of water, experiencing its weight pressing against my neck and shoulders. As I gradually submerged, the warm flow enveloped me, disseminating heat throughout my body. My thoughts were incessantly dominated by his presence. This image occupied my mind entirely, permeating every aspect of my being. I endeavored to focus on the sensation of the water and the sound of it cascading, yet his smile and voice remained vivid, perpetually residing in my thoughts. I noticed a movement from the periphery of my vision. Through the narrow gap in the door, I beheld my father observing me, his expression tender yet scrutinizing, with a subtle smile gracing his lips, as if he were bewildered by his own presence there. My heart appeared to cease, and I inhaled deeply without attempting to hide. The water flowed over my skin, yet in that instant it felt altered, as if his gaze infused. We exchanged glances, as if time had paused. Memories of our previous effortless communication came to mind at a mere glimpse. His smile, imbued with soft warmth, has consistently been my most cherished possession. Even in my childhood, he delighted in snuggling near to me, playfully asserting, "Lily, you're my favorite person in the world." Patiently awaiting my response during those years, he consistently carved out moments for us to share something significant. We often wandered through the park hand in hand, as if we could shield one another from everything beyond our small world. Those walks were my favorites. We always paused at the tiny ice cream shop. He would say, "Chocolate," with a grin that highlighted the small dimple on his cheek. I always chose chocolate as well, establishing a silent tradition between us. When my ice cream inevitably melted in my hands, he would laugh softly, dabbing my sticky fingers clean with a napkin. He never spoke ill of my mother. Even after she departed, he somehow mustered the ability to assert that she merely opted for an alternative existence, which did not suggest that I was insignificant to her. Yet I recognized the statements were false. I observed the alteration in his gaze whenever her name was said, as he concealed his anguish to shield me. To me, my mother resembled a shadow, a person who disappeared, abandoning us. I could not comprehend how she could abandon a man who was an extraordinary father. Over time, my animosity towards her intensified, yet he never fostered it. Instead, he imparted lessons of kindness. Despite concealing the scars of his own heart, he endeavored to demonstrate the essence of love, even when his capacity to give was diminished. Reflecting on those moments, I recognized the profound impact he had on my life. His kindness, his smile, and the love he offered became the cornerstones of my existence. As streams of water cascaded down me, I stood there absorbing the warmth of realization. With my father still nearby, his smile conveyed a subtle apology for intruding on such a private time, yet his gaze remained steadfast. I had a surge of unease, but in an unexpectedly composed manner I said, "Come in." He hesitated upon entering the bathroom, briefly glancing at me before swiftly averting his attention to grasp a chair beside him. He then took a towel and remarked, "You're soaked." His voice was steady and familiar, yet I caught a faint undertone of anxiety. Moving cautiously as though afraid of startling me, he approached and began drying me with the towel. He started with my shoulders and arms, slowly working his way down. His touch felt familiar, yet it also carried a strange newness that I couldn't define. I looked at his face, noticing the sharp line of his cheekbones and the strength in his jaw, and felt something unfamiliar stir within me. Every motion he made was deliberate and gentle, and when he bent closer to dry the droplets on my neck, I felt the warmth. An overwhelming and inexplicable sensation washed over me, as though we had entered a realm where ordinary rules no longer applied. The thought, "This is wrong," darted through my mind. It's unacceptable, yet I couldn't tear my eyes away from him. The body I had seen countless times now appeared different. His muscles defined beneath his t-shirt, and the faint tattoos peeking from his sleeves caught my attention. He had always been in good shape, but I had never allowed myself to notice him this way before. My heartbeat quickened, and I was certain he could sense it. For a moment he froze, still holding the towel, and his gaze locked with mine. It was forbidden, yet in that instant it felt as though the world had abandoned its rules. His hands, strong but gentle, carried a warmth that lingered. Everything about the moment seemed to defy what should have been. As he began drying my hair with a towel, I felt the tension that had built up in my body slowly begin to fade. His fingers moved gently over my scalp, smoothing the strands with such care that I couldn't resist closing my eyes. Water continued to drip from the ends of my hair, but every motion of his hands felt deliberate, as though he wanted this moment to linger indefinitely. When his fingers brushed against the skin of my neck, a wave of warmth surged through me, spreading to every part of my body. The tightness in my shoulders melted away as each part of me surrendered to the soothing sensation of his touch. The bathroom, bathed in soft light, seemed to transform into another world, small, enclosed, and shut off from everything else. "Is it better?" he asked gently. His voice was scarcely discernible, yet proximate. I nodded, keeping my eyes closed. My breathing had steadied, but my heart still raced faintly, resembling the flutter of a tiny bird. His every movement conveyed more than simple care. I could sense it in the way his hands lingered momentarily before resuming. "You need to rest," he said after a pause, placing the towel on my shoulders. I opened my eyes and looked up at him. His face was close, his gaze so penetrating that it left me breathless. "Thank you," I whispered, barely recognizing my own voice. He smiled, a faint crease forming on his face, a smile that had always comforted me, but now it stirred something deeper, something I couldn't ignore. The moment felt fragile, almost surreal, yet unforgettable. We stood so near that I could hear his steady, warm breaths blending with the gentle sound of water dripping from my hair. My thoughts were scattered, spilling over like the water pooling at our feet. Time seemed suspended, leaving just the two of us in this intimate space. My eyes met his, and there was something new in his expression, something I hadn't noticed before, or perhaps I hadn't allowed myself to see. It wasn't just care or love, it was something stronger, something that broke through the barriers I'd carefully built in my mind. Which of us stepped over the boundary first? Could it have been me, or could it have been inevitable? I leaned forward, my heart pounding in my chest. My breath caught as my lips met his. For a fleeting moment, I thought he might pull away, but he didn't. Instead, his hands rested lightly on my shoulders before pulling me closer. He returned the kiss, soft but sure, as if reassuring me that he felt the same. Everything around us, the reminders of reality, faded away. There were no more rules, no restrictions, nothing but the overwhelming sensation enveloping us like the warm steam in the air. My heart swelled with something entirely new, something powerful and undeniable. His warmth and touch became a part of me, feeling as natural as breathing itself. As we broke apart, I noticed his gaze had deepened, revealing something he had perhaps kept hidden until now. "Lily," he murmured, his voice so tender that I knew nothing between us would ever be the same again. His hands tightened around my waist, and I felt a wave of heat rush through me, leaving no room for doubt about the gravity of this moment. It wasn't the chaotic drunkenness I had experienced an hour ago. This was something entirely different. My heartbeat aligned with his, and every touch seemed to amplify the connection between us. When I looked at him, there was no longer any hesitation. The emotions I had tried to suppress, everything I had kept bottled up, now spilled out freely. He felt it, I could see it in his eyes, and in the way his fingers trembled slightly yet refused to pull away. My mind was clear. The haze of alcohol had long since vanished, but a new kind of intoxication had taken its place, a heady, all-encompassing passion that consumed us both. My breath grew heavier as he pulled me closer. "Are you sure?" he inquired, his voice faint, low, and hesitant, as if fearful of disrupting the fragile moment. I nodded, but it was insufficient. Placing my palm on his chest, I sensed his heart racing as intensely as mine. "Yes," I said as his hands ascended higher. His fingers traced the contours of my body, yet his touch was cautious, as though he feared I may dissipate like morning mist. Nevertheless, I was fully there, every part of me vibrant. At that moment the water continued to flow over us as he pulled Me from the bathroom, and the air outside felt brisk against our warm bodies. I sensed only him. His steps were quiet yet purposeful. As he gently carried me to his room, he laid me on the bed with the reverence of one performing a sacred ritual, every motion deliberate and unhurried. His hand brushed along my face, pausing at my chin, and he leaned to meet my gaze. "Lily," he murmured, his voice deep and tender, and I pulled him closer, unable to endure even a fleeting moment of separation. There remained nothing to restrain us. We became one, not merely in passion, but in the unspoken acknowledgement that something extraordinary had always existed between us. The room was steeped in silence, broken only by our breath. Soft light filtered through the curtains, wrapping us in a warmth that felt as though it existed beyond time itself. The bed beneath us felt like an island, isolated from the vast world left behind the closed door. He leaned in, his breath grazing my skin, his touch confident yet gentle, as if memorizing every contour of my body. Each delicate caress sent ripples through me, awakening every cell with a pulse of warmth. My heart beat loudly in my chest, and I was certain he could hear, yet his gaze held no urgency, only infinite tenderness. His eyes were so penetrating that I felt utterly bare, far beyond physical exposure. His fingers traced the curve of my face, skimming my cheeks before pausing at my chin and lifting my face. He locked eyes with me, and the moment brimmed with a silent understanding that nothing restrained us anymore. He leaned in again, and our lips met, this time in a kiss that was slower, deeper, and filled with an overwhelming tenderness that made my chest ache. His hands glided down my shoulders, every touch imbued with intention, leaving me unable to control the way my body trembled under him. It was as though he could feel exactly what I felt, responding with such gentleness that I was overcome. The air between us grew warmer and thicker, with an almost magical energy that seemed to hum around us. Our movements were unhurried and deliberate, as though we were trying to etch every second into our memories. In that moment we were entirely in sync, a perfect union where nothing felt artificial. Warmth wrapped around me, and I knew I would carry this memory with me forever. He was so unguarded and infinite. We lay side by side, wrapped in silence, though it was not the kind of silence that felt empty. It was a quiet that spoke louder than any words could. His hand rested lightly on my waist as I stared up at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what had just transpired. Thoughts were tangled, caught between reality and the meaning behind it all. Yet in that moment, I felt neither regret nor shame, only the warmth and tranquility he always seemed to bring into my life. Turning my head, I looked at him. His expression was serene. However, his eyes upon meeting mine communicated significantly more than his expression revealed. I sensed he whispered, as though he comprehended every thought I wished to transmit. I felt it as well. Perhaps it was inappropriate. However, he did not complete his statement, and all that required expression had already been conveyed by our gestures, our caresses, and the manner in which we regarded one another. "What is the next step?" I inquired gently, my stare unwavering. His gaze fixed, his eyes softened, and a slight smile graced his lips as he extended his hand to caress my hair. "We are in no hurry," he responded. "We will continue to live as we did previously, but now we comprehend that this moment belongs solely to us. It is something we will bear in silence. One would ever discover what transpired between us tonight, although I could never conceal it within myself, as it had become integral to my being." He drew me nearer. I rested my head upon his shoulder. The steady cadence of his heartbeat provided solace despite the multitude of unanswered questions that loomed ahead. I was unequivocally certain of one truth: this was our moment, our secret, impervious to external forces. The space between us was imbued with an indescribable yet profoundly robust and intangible connection that intensified with each breath. The silence was not stifling, it had evolved into a silent observer of what remained incomprehensible to others. His hand glided softly along my waist, affirming that this was not a mere illusion but a reality we had both opted to accept. I scrutinized his face, seeking confirmation of his shared sentiments, and discovered it in the delicate lines around his eyes and a slight elevation of his lips in a serene, knowing smile. "Do you harbor any regrets?" I murmured, scarcely able to articulate. As he posed the question aloud, his gaze met mine with a certainty I lacked. No, Lily, not for what is real, he declared, dispelling the last remnants of doubt. We refrained from discussing the future or formulating plans, yet I understood that this moment would be etched in our memories eternally. With my eyes closed, I sensed his breath intertwining with mine, and the surrounding world appeared to soften and quiet, although the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. One truth remained: this moment was